Doctor Who, Hornet's Nest, The Stuff of Nightmares by Paul Mars, starring Tom Baker and Richard Franklin.
What are you doing here, hidden away in deepest Sussex? I didn't know you owned property.
There's a lot we don't know about each other, Captain.
It's plain Mister these days, Doctor. Has been for quite some time.
Of course. Since the business with the dinosaurs marauding about Westminster, eh?
Quite.
Forgive me if I slip into old habits and call you Captain. As for why I'm here, in bucolic splendour, you can call it a temporary sojourn.
But it can't be you.
Oh, dear. Are you going to get very mixed up? Have a drink, Mike. Sit yourself down, my dear chap.
Timelines. It's the timelines, isn't it? You've gone and crossed over and back again and looped the flaming loop, haven't you?
Have I?
But you... you look just like you did after I left unit. We met once.
Yes, the Brigadier's Christmas party.
But then I heard that you changed, and changed again.
Did I? How annoying for all of us.
And here you are, back as you were in the 70s. And look at me.
As you know, Mike, time's not linear for me.
I know, only too well. Look at you. Any of you can come back at any time, can't you? Without a by your leave.
I'm afraid so. I'm so glad you've come. You see, I've been in need of a little company.
You, Doctor? Company? I thought you were happy wandering about on a whim. It's not like you to sit in one place. What are those damned insects? They shouldn't be around in the middle of winter. You've got a bit of an infestation problem here, Doctor.
Exactly, Mr. Yates. There's something rather horrible about fighting monsters who aren't even alive. You can't hear them breathing, because they don't breathe. And they can sneak up on you, easy as anything, because their footsteps are soft and muffled. Their insides rustle with stuffing and sawdust, and so you have to listen very, very carefully in the night to hear them approach. They mostly come out at night. That's when stuffed animals go hunting. Their victims rarely hear them until it's too late. There's a strange smell, perhaps formaldehyde, a whiff of mothballs, an aroma of spoiled leather or musty fur. Being dead doesn't deter these beasties from trotting and traipsing about in the night, and some of them are quite dangerous, you know. Oh, yes. That snow leopard in the study. He'd have your head off as soon as look at you. The giant hare in the downstairs hall could give you a nasty thumping, if he was so inclined. I first became aware of these nocturnal misdeeds a few short weeks ago. I was on a little break here in the peaceful countryside, and I happened upon a local paper's garbled report of the death of a cabinet minister. He'd been trampled to death in his own bed, the terrible imprint of a hoof upon his forehead, a hoof print belonging to an alpine ibex, Mike.
Not a goat one normally associates with Sussex.
Quite. And not something one would expect to be attacked by in the middle of the night in one's own bed. Similarly, the following weekend, a top-secret governmental think-tank cocktail party was broken up by the rampaging of a bull elephant. Several influential figures from Whitehall were flattened that day, before the military destroyed the beast, finding nothing but wood shavings inside the elephant. You look surprised, Mike. In the past, you would have been well informed of these strange incidents. They're odd enough for UNIT to have been called to the scene. Perhaps we would have been standing there together, you and I, and the Brigadier, in the wreckage of that cocktail party, examining the blasted remains of the elephant. What theories would we have cooked up, eh? Perhaps we'd have had the whole affair stitched up by now. Well, this is a different era. And reading about these peculiar occurrences, do you know, I even felt a twinge of nostalgia. Me? Remember how many times I railed against you lot for dragging me into the affairs of human beings? How many mysteries I looked into under sufferance, just for you?
I do indeed, Doctor.
And so I kept my ear to the ground. I listened for the patter of little hooves, the thumping of boneless feet upon the ground, and sure enough, there were other deaths, other strange sightings. An elderly nuclear arms expert fell into a python's embrace as she took her evening bath. Strangled and squeezed to horrible death she was, and then ingested. Who can be controlling these monsters, as somebody evidently is? Stuffed creatures don't go round of their own volition wiping out influential figures. No. Someone is using these hollow beasts for their own wicked ends. Where do stuffed animals come from? I believe they're a little out of fashion and favour these days, these more enlightened days of your human 21st century. Perhaps it seems barbaric to have these corpses posturing about the place, prancing on plinths, boggling their dead glassy eyes at spectators. Once upon a time, stately homes and museums were teeming with the frozen, musty things. Museums! Of course. That was it. I ran a quick scan on an area some 20 miles in diameter within which the strange attacks had taken place. How many public and private museums might still have examples of the taxidermist's art on show? Doing a little poking around and asking a few questions here and there, I learned that in this age of computer-animated displays and interactive animatronic models, museums are increasingly ridding themselves of their stuffed animals, even the rare and extinct ones. Just imagine, all creatures great and small, preserved beyond their natural deaths and given a home, suddenly unwanted, suddenly chucked out, suddenly no one cares. Surely this couldn't be why they had gone on the rampage. Surely this couldn't be some form of bestial revenge.
It seems ridiculous. I mean, how could a lot of moth-eaten relics suddenly jerk and twitch into life?
I knew you'd say that. Well, listen. They're all quite dead, Mike. All of them. Their animal souls have fled, their bones have been filleted, their flesh has been melted away from their furry hides, and their brains have been scooped like cake mix out of a bowl. But what animates them, eh? What fills their empty hearts and minds with such devastating hatred? I was very keen to find out. My search took me on a round of local stately homes and rather threadbare collections, where the animals looked on the whole wan and hopeless. I saw nothing that seemed very threatening, nothing that could give you a nasty nibbling in the night. Until, of course, I became aware of the activities of Mr. Noggins. Ah, the sly and clever Mr. Noggins. An unassuming little man, a rather private fellow, to whom taxidermy is a passion. He has a flair and a feeling for it, a rare talent. With just a few delicate touches he can restore apparent life to these mothy cadavers. Their glass eyes swivel in supplication, and the dead seem to bend one knee in honour of this deft and clever man. Mr. Noggins burns with fury at the knowledge that the animals are being thrown out of the museums. Skips and bins stand at the back of the buildings. I've seen this for myself, and it does seem rather a shame to see legs sticking out rigidly from a heap of abandoned bodies, to see a proud lion's head poking majestically from the tip. I soon became aware of these backstreet menageries. I staked them out. I went to see who came to collect them up. I became aware of the huge steaming shunting lorries belonging to the rubbish men, who came by every now and then to collect up the dead. They took them away at night, lovingly disinterring them from their resting places in the cold, dark alleys. Percy Noggins' men dealt with the creatures delicately, solicitously, and they took them away. But where to? I had to know.